My Destined 1, Tensura x Arifureta by Void Kane. Ch 66. Imperial Castle, Part 1. The sun was about to rise, and a few minutes before the eastern sky began to lighten, two figures sat on the rock. It was Rimuru and Chloe who woke up early. By the way, only Rimuru was sitting on the rock, and Chloe was sitting on his lap. The people next to them from the observation spot were already asleep. Where they were sitting was also a blind spot, the two happily enjoying their first time of silence together in a long time. And, at that time, Chloe, who was resting her head on Rimuru's shoulders, slowly looked up at him. Without warning, she kissed Rimuru's neck. There was a cute sucking sound, the morning silence fluttering briefly. "What's wrong?" all of a sudden, Rimuru asked. "I don't know why, but I'm remembering something from last night." What happened last night that Chloe mentioned was the conversation about taking down the Imperial Castle. But why is that? What was the meaning of that kiss? In response to Chloe's gentle gaze, Rimuru was confused. Instead of the Great Labyrinth, you and Hajime prioritize Shia and the Rabbit people. I'm glad you treasure them as friends. I'm happy that the number of people important to Rimuru-san has increased even more. And you are slowly returning to your old self. And because of that, happiness overflows, and because of that, I suddenly want to kiss you. When Chloe said that, she simultaneously placed a kiss on Rimuru's cheek. After a few minutes, Chloe spoke to Rimuru. "So she really is sensei after all?" Chloe asked Rimuru. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure of it, we just need to wait for her memories to come back." "Mew, it's fine to add Akame-chan too, you know," Chloe said to Rimuru. In response, Rimuru gives a confusing look to what Chloe just said. "What are you talking about, Chloe? Surely Akame don't have any feeling for me, you know." Well, I doubt that. Chloe's expression was mixed between happiness and doubt. For Chloe, Shizu was the first friend and teacher she met after being summoned. She was her comrade, a friend, a love rival, but most importantly a family. She knows that Rimuru will be even happier when she came back, and she knows that the big hole that's on Rimuru's heart will heal, and she also knows that more girls will be on Rimuru's side by the end of this journey for her. No matter how many girls Rimuru had as a wife, as long as they keep Rimuru happy, then she is fine with that, since she knows that Rimuru will make them happy in return. So, she was happy because of the words Rimuru faithfully said, but she was also a bit confused that Rimuru didn't realize Akame's feelings and actions. So, in the first place, in order not to think about this matter anymore, Rimuru attacked Chloe's lips without asking back. Mew, you, Rimu, N. The eastern sky began to lighten little by little. It gradually created a dark shadow behind the two. The perfectly entwined shadows parted from time to time but quickly entwined again. Because of that, the ecstatic sound resounded. Chloe's eyes were moist with enchantment. Her cheeks were rosy, and her lips were shining with glitter. Exactly as Rimuru intended. And, the movement of the two, as if it was natural, continued. They started to hear a person's voice from the other side of the rock, where Rimuru was going to do it. "Oi, Rimuru. Are you there?" Apparently it was Kuki. He came to look for Rimuru because he couldn't find him at the sleeping place. Since his voice was so loud, everyone seemed to be waking up right away. "Come on, that guy really have to ruin my sweet moments with Chloe. I will sure to break this guy's arm." While cursing, there was no other way, Rimuru was about to stand up while still hugging Chloe, but that didn't happen. Because, "Rimuru-san, I won't let you escape. Hey, wait." It was because Chloe pushed Rimuru down, riding on Rimuru's hip. Then flexing half of her body to correct her position, she sat down on Rimuru's hip again. This time Chloe attacked Rimuru. "Kuki, is Rimuru-kun there?" Shizuku asks Kuki. Since Rimuru was distracted by Chloe, he forgot that he's concealing his presence, and since Seal is with Hajime and the other girls, he didn't notice that his presence is being sensed by the idiot Kuki. "Ah, I can feel his presence." Shizuku and Suzu appeared behind Kuki, and Ryotarto also came. Kuki walked around the rock while answering Shizuku, but he instinctively froze when he saw the scene before him. While looking at Kuki incredulously because he stopped on the other side of the rock, Shizuku and the others also peered over the rock. Bishi, they were also silent. In addition, from behind Seal, Akame, Sakura, and Hajime and his girls also approached. Since they saw Kuki and the others, they got curious about where they are going, so they followed them. And while looking suspiciously at the silent group in front of them, they circled around the rock. "Hey, what are you two doing so early in the morning?" "I'm also participating," Sakura said. Okay, then, Seal? How is it okay? Let's split up quickly. Attacking each other in the morning, I mean, it's ridiculous, Kuki said. "Hajime, let's do it too," Yu said while walking beside Hajime. "Mew, let me join Hajime-san," Shay asked and ready to jump at Hajime. Meanwhile, Tio is panting hard and Hajime was still frozen when he saw his brother and his fiancée. "Mew, isn't that good girl? It's fine to hit a little girl." While feeling tired from the chaos in the early morning, at this time, Rimuru lifted Chloe with one hand. In a place not far away, the others who were stunned by this moment had regained their senses. Suzu, they're adults, although her face was stiff, it had already started to heat up and turned red. Shizuku supported her beside her. However, Shizuku and Akame's ears were already red and for some reason, they both looked jealous. The dawn broke the night, even though it was the signal for the Horia to begin the war for their new life. What a ridiculous way to start. The imperial castle, which symbolizes the Holshire Empire, is surrounded by a deep waterway that is about 20 meters in depth, also surrounded by strong castle walls where magic-like defenses were active. Guards are always stationed on the castle walls. Even an aquatic demon would be shot in the waterways. As an entrance, there is only one front gate with a huge drawbridge. The number of people who can come to the imperial castle is also limited. Only people who have permits imbued with magic are allowed to enter. In front of the drawbridge, there's a huge post that resembles the triumphal arches in France. If you don't clear the examination to enter the castle here, you wouldn't be allowed to cross the drawbridge at all. If you try the impolite way and invade the castle, you'd be thrown into the waterways where demons thrive. The inspection at the post is also quite merciless. For example, even if you were a trader of supplies going in and out with an entrance permit through regular procedures, every product would be inspected one by one. Therefore, it's also impossible to try to invade by hiding in the luggage. In other words, trying to trespass into the imperial castle is extremely difficult. Towards that kind of fact, Kuki thought about it while waiting in line at the castle inspection ahead of the triumphal arch. He looked back and glanced over his shoulder. There, his usual party members and his childhood friends Shizuku, Ryotaro, Suzu, and also Hajime and Rimuru's group were there. Kuki's group came back to the imperial capital to enter the imperial castle in a dignified manner. After a few minutes of waiting, it was their turn and the guard spoke to them. "Next, you're an unfamiliar face. Let me see your permit." The guard soldiers looked at Kuki's group with a suspicious expression. The amount of people who can enter the imperial castle is limited, so the guards know most of the faces, and, normally on their first visits, people wear their best clothes. However, they were extremely well equipped for a group that's been invited to the imperial castle for the first time. That's why, like Kuki's group, people dressed up like adventurers are rare. They were suspicious, so they began to become more cautious. "No, we don't have any permits. In its place, we have this." "Ha? A status plate? Just what?" Naturally, Hajime, Rimuru, and them did not have a permit to enter the imperial castle. But Kuki's position is useful here. After all, he is the only hero that is known by the Empire. The trump card of the human race whom God sent into the game with the demon race and was viewed publicly as God's apostle, for example, even if that wasn't the actual reality of the situation. Although the guard gave them dangerous looks when they said they didn't have permits, his eyes twinkled when he read the character hero displayed on the status plate. He alternately looks back and forth between the status plate and Kuki's face. From the guard's reaction, the surrounding colleagues were beginning to pay attention. "Eto, hero, Sama, right? God's apostle that was summoned in the kingdom?" "Ah, yes, that's right. I'm the hero. Though I came with Princess Liliana, who is here, due to a few circumstances." From the guard's mutter, his colleagues learned of Kuki's identity and began to become increasingly noisy. Their expressions were natural. "Why, did you come separately from Princess Liliana? Why didn't you communicate this beforehand?" Their questions were full of doubt. However, the other party is God's apostle whom they believe in. Surely they were in charge of a secret mission that was given to them. For the time being, They passed the word to the higher-ups. As expected, even for the hero, because they didn't dare to let a person who wasn't scheduled to enter the castle with their discretion. Several guards disappeared while dashing into the imperial castle as they were frightened to rudely keep them waiting. They are placed in the waiting room of the post, after waiting 15 minutes. Disregarding Yu, who was on Hajime's knee, which became a scene so natural that nobody bothers to Tsukomi anymore. Shia was sitting on the other knee. Kaori and Tio formed a partnership at the last second and held onto his hands respectively. Rimuru on the other hand has Chloe hugging his right arm while Sakura is on his left. Seal went inside Rimuru before they entered the Empire and Kuki and the others got surprised when Seal entered Rimuru's body. Then they began to hear the Doda Doda footsteps coming from the drawbridge. I heard that the heroes group had come here, is it you guys? Ah, yes, that's right. That's us. While saying so and showing his appearance, it was an especially large Empire soldier. It's possible to tell that he's of a higher rank from the attitudes of the surrounding soldiers. He, while impudently staring at Kuki, and checking Kuki's status plate, he began to glance at the other members in an investigation. In the process, when Shia, who was in the blind spot, was seen, his eyes opened wide in surprise, and he began grinning an unpleasant smile of interest. Towards the unpleasant glance, Shia's body shakes slightly. I've confirmed it. I am the commander of the 3rd Regiment, Grid Half. Word of the heroes group has already entered Princess Liliana's ears as well. She's waiting in her room. I'll have my subordinate guide you. By the way, Hero, the bunny girl? She doesn't have a slave collar on her, right? No, she's. The man who introduced himself as Grid Half asked about Shia as he returned the status plate. However, Kuki was troubled about how to answer. She wasn't a slave. The choker that Shia wore looked nothing like a slave's collar. He hesitated if he should declare that she was Hajime's lover or not. Even if you ask me such things, he honestly replied. Did Kuki's answer allow him to judge to not expect anything, which caused him to become quiet? Grid glanced over towards Shia. And they managed to guess the reason why he is so intensely paying attention to Shia. Yo, oh, bunny girl. I've got a few questions for you. What happened to my subordinates? Subordinates? What do you, from Grid's sudden question. For an instant, although Shia had no idea what he was talking about, she seemed to have guessed and her eyes were opened wide in astonishment. The Empire soldiers who had a direct relation to Shia were limited. It was naturally the group of people that cornered the Horia tribe when leaving the Sea of Trees. Many family members were killed, abducted, and placed into slavery, and it was the enemies that drove Shia to go to the Raisin Great Canyon. It's odd, huh? Even though she's returned, none of my subordinates came back. Why are you still alive and in such a place? Grid gradually approached to corner Shia. Right, he was the commander of the forces that attacked Shia group that came out of the Sea of Trees before. Because Grid, who was the regiment commander, didn't personally come to capture Shia, she had no memories of ever seeing Grid before. However, Grid firmly recalled that there was a rare rabbit man with blue-white hair. In Shia's mind, the expressions of the Empire soldiers had when attacking to tease them and the sense of hopelessness of losing a family member at that time, flashed back. While unconsciously raising out a groan and her expression stiffening up, one step, trying to back away, she felt a warm touch on her cheeks and became startled. If you look, just as usual, Hajime picked up Shia's cheeks, and, immediately after that, she felt warmth in her hand. That was you. Rimuru, who saw all this happening, didn't say a single word since he knows that Hajime cared for Shay and Hajime won't let anyone hurt her, so he decided to leave it to Hajime. Her eyes looking up showed no worries, if anything it was amazement. A slight color of scolding appeared though. It seemed to imply, don't be overwhelmed by small fries of this level, greenhorn. Shia, who was looking at you and Hajime, with a wry smile said, I'm alright now, no matter how you looked at it. The events which took place was a trauma. The present Shia was unmistakably a strong person who had enough power and spirit to crush the monsters in the great labyrinths to pieces. There's no reason for her to be overwhelmed by the pressure that one officer was releasing. Shia, with an attractive smile after decisively straightening her spine towards the approaching Grid, and declared to Grid, who instinctively stopped advancing. I don't know a thing about your subordinates. They were likely people who were slow in the head. Maybe they were eaten by some kind of demon that appeared somewhere. Also, there's no reason for me to answer your questions at all? You sure are getting full of yourself. Did you think you were safe because you were with the heroes group? If you're not a slave, then you probably sold it away, that body of yours? A prostitute's life. I won't be taking such tongue from you. Although Grid said those dangerous words while dangerously stealing up his eyes, Shia had already removed eye contact with Grid. Her eyes told that she didn't care. Rather, having called Shia a prostitute, the other girls looked at Grid with anger, especially Chloe and Akame. Seal is also angry and asks Rimuru if she can kill Grid, but Rimuru calm her down and just leave everything to Hajime. While looking at Shia's attitude, his veins appeared and his expression twisted with anger. When he noticed the looks, to deceive them he smiled and declared to Kuki, "I'm terribly sorry, Hiro Dono. This rabbit man seems to know something about my subordinates that have been missing since 2 months ago. Will you listen to my request? If you need a rabbit woman, I can prepare another for you, this time around." "Oi, underling," however, a voice interrupted before Grid finished talking. At the same time that Grid glanced towards the voice, his expression cramped up because of anger. There the annoyed-looking Hajime was seen. "What? Don't open your mouth, underling. Your role is already over. Making us stay forever over foolish things. Quit wasting time and guide us quickly," Hajime said. "He is right, you already run your mouth full. Mind if we finish this up and get moving?" Rimuru said while looking bored and annoyed. "Why, you little, can you not understand the meaning of being silent to us? We don't even have a minuscule amount of time to spend on you. Know your place." To Rimuru and Hajime's words, Grid's face has dyed completely red because of the hooligan who picked a fight since they didn't want anything to do with him. His eyes became bloodshot in anger. Even then, self-control was something a regiment commander was required to have. With just one wrong line to God's apostles, he would definitely be cut from his position. He became silent and the subordinate in the back began to guide them. Disregarding Grid, who was staring at Hajime and Rimuru with bloodshot eyes, Hajime and Rimuru's group left the room as if nothing happened. Although Kuki's group had slightly cramped cheeks because of Hajime's objection, the females looked refreshed. As for Hajime, there was no intent on being sarcastic. If he knew of that, blood might have gushed out from Grid's blood vessels. As for Rimuru, he didn't expect that Grind will back down that fast. However, it seemed that a crotch smash was about to happen if he still didn't understand because he had called Shia a prostitute. The Grid should be happy for himself to have such self-discipline. Hajime and Rimuru's group didn't worry about the piercing gaze that came from behind them. The huge suspension bridge was extended and they followed the pale expression guide. And that was the first word that Liliana said to Hajime and Rimuru's group as they were guided into the room in the Imperial Castle. Although she wore a smile on her face, her eyes were cold, and didn't smile at all. It seemed to express, "Explain the circumstances right away, damn it." Most likely she was busy to death from the Empire's conferences. Inside of her, no matter how she looked at it, Hajime and Rimuru's group appearing was troublesome. Unexpectedly, there was no helping that she said such things. In a sense, it was a sign of familiarity, though it might not be as well. Besides the farce at the Imperial capital, why on earth is everybody here? I demand a clear explanation. Yes, I strongly demand one. I won't forgive you if you trick me. Especially, Nagumo-san. It was definitely you and Rimuru-san who pulled the strings from behind the scenes. Don't treat others as if they were someone else's problems and stop feeling Shia-san's fluffy usamimis. You-san's also caressing and touching Shia-san's cheeks as well. Also, say something, Rimuru-san. Don't just flirt with Chloe-san and Sakura-san. Rimuru didn't answer and just said to himself, how the hell did I become a problem? Liliana's lost it. She glares at Hajime with enough power that it seems to create sounds. She also did the same towards Rimuru. It's exactly as she said. Liliana thought it was Hajime and Rimuru's idea in the Imperial capital, and it was also their idea to come to the Imperial castle. Putting it simply, the two brothers has been recognized as the leader of the group. The schemes which would normally be considered insane could only be formed from Hajime or Rimuru's mind. And Hajime, who was being blamed, was unusually gently feeling Shia's usamimis while she sat on his knee on the other knee. Yu had both hands from the front and was caressing and touching Shia's cheeks. Rimuru on the other hand didn't even care about what was happening. Your voice is too loud, princess. What's the problem today? she is kinda unstable. Unstable, you say? Is she not feeling well somewhere? At once Liliana became worried immediately, she's a good person as well. Shia that receives the glance, though biting her lip to endure something. Her expression began to loosen from her ears being felt and her cheeks being caressed. When she raised her face she showed a smile and said, "I'm fine." The reason which caused Shia's emotions to become unstable was obviously because of grid. However, it was not instability from fear in particular. It was the opposite. She was restraining her overflowing murderous intent. No matter how you say it, Grid's group was the hateful party that took away a lot of Shia family. As long as she gets over her trauma, only strong murderous intent flows afterward. However, after thinking about their purpose for coming here, she wasn't able to immediately kill him. That's why she desperately endured it. And, Hajime and Yu, who understood this, tried to soothe Shia by indulging her. She knows that once this is over she and her family will move to Rimuru's world, but that will only happen once they find a way to get back to Rimuru and Hajime's old world, so she thought that while they are here might as well make a place where her family can leave in peace. For people who don't know the circumstances, when summed up, the relation between Grid and Shia was spoken. And everyone's expression became sorrowful. Afterwards, Kuki's group naturally resented them for that. And Liliana looked down with a dark expression. For Liliana, the enslavement of demi-humans was common sense in the world and allowed. She didn't think it was far too unreasonable, although she did feel resentment. She who judged herself decided that she wasn't qualified to say anything towards the members that were making angry faces. "It's fine, really," Shia said with a dazzling smile. They urged the continuation of the story from Hajime. "And, why did you guys come here? What about your business in the forest? And also, what was up with the masked disturbance last night? It should almost be time for His Majesty, Gaharudo, to call us for a meeting. I want to get our stories straight ahead of time before we meet, so I'd like you to tell me the bare minimum if you would." Hearing the mask incident, Rimuru flinched, but no one notices except for Chloe, Sakura, and Akame. Hajime just look at Rimuru as if saying that, "This was your problem." Seeing Hajime's look, Rimuru spoke up. Don't be so restless, princess. When night comes, you'll understand everything. We want to hurry and wrap things up. After all, we stopped for a slight detour. That should be all that you need to know for now," Rimuru said to Liliana. Such unreasonableness. I'll know when it's night, you say. It can't be. Do you plan to create another disturbance with masks again? I understand now. Rimuru-san was the one that made Shizuku and them dress in those embarrassing get-ups. Don't get so excited. You'll grow bald, princess, Rimuru said in a joking tone. I won't grow bald. Just what are you saying to a lady? Stress can lead to baldness. Yu spoke up. Yup, you had a point, Hajime added. Hajime-san, Yu-san. She seemed to realize that Rimuru didn't plan on speaking any further. Moreover, Liliana, who received such impolite treatment, said, "Even though I'm a princess," while being depressed. Right next to her, Shizuku was, embarrassing get-ups, muttering quietly while being reminded of her dark history. Afterward, in the place where Liliana became depressed, she explained the situation. Apparently, His Majesty, Gaharudo, was told the story about the end of the church and the gods who went mad. However, as expected of their abilities reigned supreme principles. The top of the country is in utilitarianism. Basically everyone in the country believes in the system. Though there seems to have been a moderate impact, while fearlessly laughing he declared that the way they did things wouldn't particularly change anyways. In other words, if it's an enemy, they'll be cut down. If you want something, then forcefully take it. The weak must obey the strong, is what he said. Hearing this information, Rimuru thought to himself that, the god that went mad is already dead, but a new threat appeared that's more dangerous than mad god. But he didn't say anything since it will only make everyone panic. Furthermore, Gaharudo wondered how Liliana traveled to the empire. He was anxious. In other words, though he understood the story of the kingdom being attacked, the amount of time that it took Liliana to reach the empire was far too quick. Though he was saved because the empire also felt that an immediate conference of cooperation with the kingdom should be held, it was impossible to arrive at the empire after only 1 week of the attack. At the same time, how did the kingdom manage to drive away the demon army? He was considerably interested in their methods. About the battle that gave the demonic army forces a fatal blow, rather than talking about the god, excuses of heaven's judgment. wouldn't cut it for Gaharudo. When it comes to that, naturally, he came to the assumption that someone had a weapon or was strong enough to destroy an entire army in one blow. To that truth, as the emperor of the Holshire Empire, and as a person, he wasn't able to overlook it. If he investigates it, he'll know immediately. Liliana, who got permission from Hajime and Rimuru beforehand, especially talking about how troublesome Hajime and Rimuru were. However, because she thought Hajime and Rimuru wasn't at the Empire but traveling around in a faraway place, they had actually entered the heart of the Empire and was meddling in Gaharudo's greedy ambitions. Then, on the other hand, what kind of movements will Hajime and Rimuru be taking from now on? Liliana was extremely anxious. Mainly, in the sense that the Empire gets mysteriously wiped out from the maps. Therefore, in the place where she would previously wait to meet with Gaharudo, although she couldn't meet with him because of previous events, the two brothers are being evasive and unserious. Liliana was already, if you're going to do it seriously, while her state of mind was slightly neglectful. Surely, being uneasy about her misgivings, she would never have guessed in her wildest dreams. From Liliana, to some extent, heard the door of the room being knocked on and the contents of the conference with the Empire were heard. It seems that time's run out. While following the guide, Hajime, Rimuru, and everyone is heading for the reception room where Gaharudo is waiting.